Hello and welcome. Welcome to another edition of Attlas Information Live. I'm your host, Attlas Alex, and today we're going to be continuing our discussion that began last week that took its inspiration from that one line from the Matrix that Trinity says to Neo about the electromagnetic pulse, or EMP. And I made a play on EMP and added in brackets afterward ATH for empath or empathy, implying that empathy was the one weapon that we have against AI and the encroachment of the increasing expansion of mechanical nature's influence and dominance over our lives. But the whole impetus for this topic and bringing it up was to explore some of the practical implications and the practical strategies that we can use with regard to making ourselves indispensable in a world where everything is slowly being replaced by these large language models, or what they call AI. And one of the areas that is surprising to some, it's not surprising to me considering the direction they took or how they arrived at this thing that they are calling AI. These large language models, or LLMs, like ChatGPT and the like. And one might have thought that AI would first seek to master and take over areas that are associated with technology, such as programming or areas related to mathematics. Like, surely maths would have been a more appropriate direction. The thing about math is that we have computers that can already do that. And we know that that doesn't lead to anything that like what we consider intelligence. It's just computation. So the large language models appear to arrive at something greater than just computation, even if it is elaborate, sophisticated, statistically driven computation happening in the background. In the foreground, what appears to us as we interact with LLMs like ChatGPT or Grok or Google's thing that I can't remember what it's called. They all try to give these large language models fancy names to make them more human, more android-like, or whatever. But in truth, when we interact with them, they seem very intelligent. Not that they have general intelligence, but they're far more intelligent than your computer. Your computer can do computations, but without the layer that we're calling AI, your computer can't write an essay for you. But these AIs can. They can draft letters and they can do all sorts of things with language. But not just language, as in alphabets and words and grammar and style and form, but also visual language. And not just visual language, because they're also becoming very adept at music and being able to create music just based on a few text prompts. Write me a song in this style or this genre from this time period, or in the style of this artist, this famous songwriter, and make the song about, I don't know, bananas and pickles and whatnot. And the more specific and elaborate the prompt, which again is based in language, the more elaborate and more fleshed out the AI's output will be. Because, of course, it's trying to interpret the prompt and deliver something which is going to satisfy the demands as they were stated in the prompt. What's very interesting is that large language models, right, as the first real stab at AI, I mean, the first demonstrably impressive, I won't say legitimate, but say demonstrably impressive stab at AI that's publicly available, that anybody can try for themselves. Language was the key. Language was the key to this so-called first baby steps toward something that we can legitimately or realistically or apparently consider along the road or in the direction of artificial intelligence. Because computation is not that. The computer is not intelligent. It is a powerful computational device. It is a powerful processor of inputs and outputs. But it cannot interact with us in the same way that ChatGPT can. So the AI adds a whole new layer, a whole new dimension to computing and computation. And that the dimension that it adds is what? Is language, is the word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And isn't it interesting that this platform, these artificial intelligence, large language model platforms, even the ones that create images and music and animations and video, there are very, very impressive AI video generators. Isn't it interesting that they are all based in language? That is how we tell these statistically algorithm-based computational generative platforms what it is we want the output to be. And the machine, the mechanical system, because because it's not a conscious entity. It's just a machine. Attempts to interpret in its own way our language, our words, the word, and then formulate an output and actually make a creation. In other words, bring to life, to create, digitally at least, that which we expressed in words. In here is the crux, hidden within this truth, hidden within the operation of AI itself, is the EMP. It is the human being's competitive advantage and the only weapon we have against AI, against the machines. It's the word. AI effectively can't function without it. Where is it going to get the word? Who's going to input it? I mean, they're all learning. There are excuse me, there are AIs that have been trained on countless books and countless texts and countless images and image libraries. And that's all fine and dandy. All those images are in its database. But where do the prompts come from? The notion that true creativity will be replaced by machines, by AI, ignores the fact that an AI can't generate the word, that which precedes creation. Everything that it creates with has already been created. Everything that AI creates with is a product already. It's an output already. What it's doing is rearranging and reorganizing. But how is it rearranging and reorganizing? Based solely on new input. And that new input doesn't exist. It exists only in word. And what's behind the word? An intention, but more importantly, the word itself, the creative spirit, the longing to create. Every act of creation, of genuine creation, begins with a longing. Now, some acts of creation begin with a desire. And if you don't know the difference between a desire and a longing, well, you have more work to do on yourself. You have more work to do observing yourself. I could quickly posit the following distinction between the two. You're a designer working for an ad agency, and you have a deadline coming up. You have a desire to finish whatever it is you're working on in time to meet the deadline. You have a desire for the creative juices to flow and for everything to fall together. That desire might be based in fear that you're not going to meet your deadline. Or that desire may be based on something else. You want to finish this design and get it out of the way because you want to go away for the weekend. and you know that if you don't get it done on time, you're not going to be able to go away for the weekend. You're going to have to crunch over the weekend, burn the midnight oil all weekend in order for you at least to get it in by Monday morning. But you have this desire to get it done by Friday afternoon so you can go away to the cottage for the weekend, right? That's a desire to create. That's a desire in relation to that creativity. But a longing is when you have something inside of you that needs to come out. When inside of you there's something that needs to be born into the world. It longs to see the light of day. It longs to be actualized, to be realized, to be manifested. But it's not coming from here. It's not a desire of yours. It's coming from another place, a higher place, a deeper place inside of you. You become subservient to the longing versus everything that you do being subservient to your desire. That's the difference. But because we're talking about creators and creativity and the encroachment of AI and how to practically shore up and use this weapon of empathy that we've been talking about, I today have invited a good friend of mine, Eduardo Valdez, who happens to be a designer and an animator by trade. And this is a topic that Eduardo and I have discussed very often, and I wanted to invite him to join us today so that we can explore some of the more practical applications and practical implications, really, of AI, how it's affecting creators, and again, what can we explore here from an esoteric point of view? That what are the hidden truths in this whole area, in this whole field, from which we can extract practical, real solutions in order to make ourselves indispensable in this emerging world of AI. So Eduardo, why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are and what you do?
Hello, I am Eduardo. I am, I guess, visual designer. Started out in illustration a long time ago and ended up working more in design and the toy industry at first, and then eventually for more corporate sales marketing clients. And now I'm trying to shift back to something a little more creative. That's the very short, truncated version.
And how did you feel when you first started when you first started realizing what they call AI, what it's capable of, and how it was encroaching upon your field? What went through your mind?
You know, having read Dune in my youth, there was a lot of that sci-fi fear going through my going through my being, and it was prevalent in the art communities as well. It was across Facebook, across Instagram, across X, YouTube especially, there was a lot of fear, and then that fear turned into this anxiety that artists were going to be put out of work, because this was a narrative that was being pushed by a community that's now known as the AI bros, and it was also being pushed by the CEOs and developers of these AI models. They were trying to sell it to businesses as, oh, you can get rid of your copywriters, you can get rid of your designers, you can get rid of your illustrators, you can get rid of your marketing team and just have an AI. And so that happened for about 6 months, and the fear was almost real, until people got wise to it, when all these startup businesses that were entrepreneurs that try to make a quick buck rather than try to solve an actual problem in the world started using AI, and all the ads looked the same. People had 6 fingers. Things were just not quite right in the writing and the artwork, or even the music for that matter. And so that died. That took 6 months. And so I guess a couple of years now after we've had the AI and it being implemented more and more by businesses to save a buck, it's prevalent now that there needs to be an artistic hand guiding the AI, because, as you mentioned before, this thing is an algorithm. It cannot create. We humans have something of an X factor inside us. Not that we're the X-Men or anything, but we have an experience, that little voice inside us that tells us, maybe I should try this. Maybe I should experiment with this. Or, man, I remember that time my heart was broken and I felt this way and I saw this thing. Let me put that in an image, or let me write it with this sort of cadence. And I think the audience will respond to it. And the audience does respond to it because they're human beings. They've felt similar things. The algorithm can't feel. And so there has to be a human behind it.
So in the time that, well, certainly since this whole AI thing became more prevalent, there's been a great deal of content being created, and not just by AI, but just by Hollywood in general, or by the streaming platforms in general.
Mm-hmm.
What is the common vernacular that people use to describe that content?
AI slop.
Yeah, they call it AI slop. Now,
do you know where it's most prevalent?
Where?
It's eating a lot of profits for pattern designers.
Oh, yes, of course.
So a lot of these mushroom patterns, floral patterns, tiki patterns,
right.
There are great spaces online where these people share their patterns, their artwork, and they can make a great secondary income from it, or even their full-time income if they're fantastic at it. And you don't even have to be fantastic. You just have to be good. And it has to be fun, in some cases beautiful. AI slop has taken over and has killed a lot of pattern design. And you can tell it's AI if you're looking for it. If you're not looking for it, you're going to buy a shirt and you're going to say, oh, this floral print is amazing. And then a year later, you're going to notice, hey, that's not what a flower looks like. That's not an anther. What is that? And the thing is that normal people, and I say normal because they're people that have to work every day. They hit the 9 to 5. Maybe they work in a factory, maybe they work in an office, but they don't understand that this is happening. And so they see something, they say, oh, this is pretty, or hey, this marketing really gets me. And they don't really notice. It goes under their radar.
Well, the reason why it goes under their radar is in the term AI slop itself. But just before I get to that, Benjamin says, "Good afternoon, guys. Good afternoon, Benjamin. Thank you for joining us."
Hello,
Um,
Benjamin.
as you know, Ed, I do like to read out the comments when when we have them. Um, so slop, uh, typically or traditionally, slop goes into a trough
Yes.
and is just it's consumed by hogs, by pigs. That's that's where the term slop comes from. It's just it's just something to be consumed by pigs. And if you've ever seen pigs running up to the trough to consume their slop, and you see how they consume it, there is a sad commentary on the fact that content creation and that these content creators, in a bid to maximize their efficiency that all machines seek, right? It is a fundamental law of mechanical nature called the law of the conservation of energy. Nature seeks to do things with the least amount of effort, and so that's built in to the big machine, to capitalism, to everything else, right? You minimize expenses and you maximize revenue, and what do you get? You maximize profits, you maximize value. That's right, you maximize shareholder value. So so as these content creators, these machines figure out new technologies to churn out this content, well, who's consuming the content? It's if it's slop, and we know it's slop, or at least some of us know that it's slop, but there's still a market for it. There are still people who consume it. So what does that tell you about the people, or the minds, the consciousness of those who are consuming that slop?
Well, they're not aware, but some of these people, you have to have some empathy for them because they may be single mothers. They may have, 3 kids and trying to make a living, and they're not aware of this stuff. It goes under their radar. But there are other people, and they're very smart. They're very intelligent. They don't see it as slop. They just see
Yeah.
it as, it's hard to explain. But when I was a kid and I was watching Star Trek, and you see when those they visit an alien society and they have this weird device and they say, just think about what you want to see, and then it goes and all of a sudden this intricate piece of sculpture with brilliant colors is formed. See, that came from your imagination. It's like, and I remember as a kid thinking that that's not creativity.
Right.
It's
Right.
it's exactly the same thing. But that's what these people want. I don't think they themselves are capable of creativity, and I think the big push was, what was it, to make creativity available to the masses, to people who don't really have access to it. Why should artists be the only ones to have access to creativity?
Well, I mean, there's kind of, I mean, let's be somewhat charitable. As a um, as a novelty, right? As a novelty, it is fun for people to play around with AI, and it does make people feel somewhat empowered to be able to create something that they think looks professional. And hey, I did that, like, because they were the ones who prompted the AI, and however long it took them, because obviously, if you've ever worked with these things, you know that the first thing it generates is never, you have to keep massaging your prompt over and over and over again.
Right.
But the point is that as a novelty, as that kind of a tool, or like a toy, like Lego, for example. Lego is this wonderful, uh, gives you this cornucopia of building blocks, and then you allow your imagination to build with it whatever it is that you want. Of course, you're limited by the limits of the toy itself. Lego has these built-in limits. The problem that I see with AI is that the AI bros, they don't see it as a toy, they don't see it as a novelty, and they don't see it as having any limits. They see it as being unlimited, and their ambition for it is unlimited because their ambition is unlimited.
So that goes back to what you said about being subservient to their desire.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, the other thing about it, sorry, I use a notepad during these conversations, while other people will run what we're doing right now through an AI and try to truncate everything so that they get notes right away. I still like this better than something like the AI.
No, fair enough.
What AI gives me. So you were talking about the law of conservation of energy.
Yes.
So let's you refer to this as material science, I believe, but human brains have shrunk in the last 3,000 years because we use information differently. We no longer have to retain it could be other things, I don't know, but what science surmises is that we use information completely differently than our ancestors did. They had to rely on a lot of trial and error and then memory. It's surmised that they had incredible memories. We don't have incredible memories. We have these things, right? We rely on technology, and so we have access to so much information, but we know how to use it because we've been trained in certain ways. And so we rely on our experience to dictate the new information we get. So how much AI, I don't think we're talking about brain shrinkage, but we're talking about maybe creative, experiential, spiritual shrinkage,
Anytime that you're interfacing with any type of environment or technology, it's going to affect you, because you are going to, your body, your mind, the human machine is an adaptive vessel. It's an adaptive agent, right? Adaptation is built into mechanical nature, and our body, our mind is part of mechanical nature, right? Our body and our mind is on loan to us, like our brain is on loan to us by the planet. And this is all part and parcel of today's theme. By the way, before I continue too far down this track, how long do you have, Ed? Because I know you've got places to go and things to do today.
Probably another hour.
Another hour? Okay, yeah. That's good. Okay, so as an adaptogen, right? As an adaptogenic organism, if you, for example, do you remember the Segway? Do you remember the Segway? Those they're called hoverboards now. You know, the little electric scooters that people are riding around on. Like, you don't have to walk anymore. You can go everywhere on this.
Yeah.
So just imagine what that would have done had that technology caught on in a huge way, like the cell phone. And
well, you know, the inventor of that.
What's that?
Fell off a cliff. You know, the inventor of the Segway fell off a cliff while riding a Segway.
I didn't know that, but that's kind of poetic.
I felt it's part of this conversation.
But
his technology killed by his own creation.
Yeah, like Frankenstein. The point I'm making is that if If the Segways had taken off like the smartphone, we would now have Gen Z and Gen Alpha would be their health and wellness, like they wouldn't walk anywhere.
I
They
believe
would have, their legs would be atrophied.
I believe that was predicted in Wall-E.
That's right. That's right. But that's exactly, but the reason why Wall-E can predict that is because it's an absolute truth. So the more you rely on a technology, and in this case AI, your mind is going to become attuned to thinking in terms of what does AI need to hear, or how does AI understand things in order for me to get the result that I want out of AI. So already our language is horrendous compared to what it was 100 years ago. And our command of of any language anywhere in the world, it's just gone down the toilet.
Well, that's why I like
So
watching British television, because the British writers have a way of using British word magic, which you don't see in North American productions.
but
They just know how to write and create
that
beautiful
magic,
stuff.
that magic is going away because nowadays everything is written. Right now, even in Microsoft Word, I can't write anything in Word without Word telling me this is too wordy. This is too wordy. Shorten this. Make
It's
this
like,
more.
no, the point is to write it in this way, Word.
What's that?
The point is to write it in this way. Are you familiar with the series, The Wheel of Time?
Yes.
What you're talking about, Brandon Sanderson, one of the authors of Wheel of Time, he said the exact same thing in one of his YouTube lectures. He uses Word, and with Clippy's gone now, but we have Clippy's,
Ghost.
Is it the T1000 versus the T600?
Yeah.
We have Copilot, which is now telling Sanderson, no, you want to write it this way. It's like, no, it needs to be written this way because these are people that live in another world and speak another dialect, and this is how I want it written. But the AI can't turn it off. It's going to keep getting in your face.
That's right. And so the effect of that, the long-term effect of that, is that everyone's language is becoming more and more mechanical. And the more mechanical it becomes, the more sterilized, the more lifeless, heartless, soulless as the machine, the AI is so that is guiding us is so, or the AI that we're trying to prompt is so focused on efficiency and getting to the point that it's like you have to write your prompt for it. So you're not writing for yourself anymore. You're now writing specifically for a machine. You're not even writing for others. So the creation that you're making has this is being mediated by a filter, and it is being conditioned by a filter that is literally trying to filter out the heart and the soul, the color, the texture, the nuance, and the emotion, and all of these other human elements. It's literally filtering all of that stuff as it's taking your words and taking and stripping it, strip mining it only for the keywords, like hashtags, like Google does hashtags.
Yeah.
And then it generates something based on the keywords. But does it really? It doesn't understand. It doesn't comprehend what you've written. It's using fancy algorithms and statistics to
try to predict,
extrapolate an answer that it thinks it's going to match what it is that you want.
Right. It's just predictive. That's all it is. It's trying to be predictive.
That's right. A couple comments really quick. Benjamin Raphael says, like a spiritual atrophy. And he also follows up and he says, today's society is becoming increasingly shallow, which in turn fuels lawlessness and growing apathy toward important social issues. The constant influence of cell phones and the content they deliver plays a significant role in this trend. So this comes back to the AI slop, because what Benjamin is pointing out here, and what this is, we can go back to Marshall McLuhan, who said the medium is the message. Everything that comes through this particular device, this device is not one of depth. It's one of sound bites. It's one of shallow. It's content, and content is by definition shallow. It's like junk food. It's like fast food. It's not nutritious. It's just hyper palatable, and it's fast and it's fun to consume.
And it keeps you wanting more.
It keeps you busy, right?
Because it's not nutritious. You have to have more,
right? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying because it's not nutritious, it keeps you wanting more.
That's right.
And instead of creating something, instead of having the feeling of you have done something, you need to consume more, because once you hit that dopamine, you need more to feel exactly the same way the second time around. And so it's a vicious cycle.
And from a content content platform, a streaming platform, or like a Hollywood or any of these places, they look at that and they're like, well, as long as people keep consuming it in big enough numbers, then that's all that matters. But here's the thing. When we look at our history, and when we look at even the so-called blockbuster films, the first true blockbuster film was Jaws in 1977. It was the first real blockbuster where people were standing around, they were lining up around the block to see Jaws. That's where the term blockbuster comes from. And whether it's Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Star Trek, in literature, Lord of the Rings, Dune.
Thank you.
Or
I'd even say Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Okay, so there's other properties that I'm not a big fan of, but regardless, when you look at those properties that have stood the test of time and that have imbued their audiences with such tremendous passion, such love for that particular property, it's not because the property is addictive. It's not that it's catchy or flashy, or like, what makes something truly successful cannot be replicated, cannot be duplicated. A machine cannot study the Mona Lisa and then create something as beautiful as the Mona Lisa. It's impossible. Because what created the Mona Lisa was not mechanical. It was not an intellect. It was not a mind. The mind was involved in its creation. But the source of the creative impulse did not come from mechanical nature itself, did not come from you, your mind, or your body. Because all of that, you, your mind, your body, your personality, that's all on loan from mechanical nature. That's just an Iron Man suit and Jarvis.
Right, but you can use what we've been given to try to achieve mastery. And whereby I mean mastery is you hone a bunch of experience and skill, but you're also connected to that thing deep inside that's showing you.
Okay, but now you're getting ahead of me on where we want to go with this, right? But that's where we want to go with it, and that's why, in my background, right, That's why on my background here, I've got a man and a woman here, and they're holding the Holy Grail, the cup, the chalice, and the six-pointed star, as above, so below. That's the Hermetic principle of correspondence. Because what we are talking about, the Holy Grail, in this particular context of creativity, of art, the Holy Grail is that which gives everlasting life. The cup, the vessel that grants everlasting life. What effectively means is that you can drink. It's like the fountain of youth. It's the same symbol. It's the same archetype. It is the boundless font, the endless spring, the eternal wellspring of life. And that is the secret sauce that gives art its immortality, that makes one work of art or one piece of music immortal and another just a piece of popular entertainment or popular culture that's completely forgotten. It was just there and people consumed it and then it was forgotten. But people still read Shakespeare, people still read the Bhagavad Gita and the Bible, and people still play Mozart and Beethoven and Wagner and Bach, and the list is long. And the Renaissance masters, and people still go in to look at the Sistine Chapel, and people still marvel at David, and so on and so on and so on. But there are countless other so-called works of art that they're just sculpture. They're just, somebody was really skilled when they made it, but it was just a person, a really skilled craftsperson practicing their craft. And at that level, there's nothing wrong with that, because maybe at their level, and maybe their village or their community or their town or whatever bought or commissioned that statue and put it out in front of City Hall, and people appreciate it, right? There's the giant bronze griffin outside University of Guelph. Well, it's Guelph Griffins. Well, some artist, some craftsperson was commissioned to make that griffin and did so. Or it was an art student who made it in art class and the university bought it from them and put it out in front of the university. Well, that's fine. And it has its merits, but it's no David. And it is, right? So it's what makes something immortal is precisely one of the triangles in the Hermetic principle. As above, so below. And it's right in the earth, it's right in the Lord's Prayer. Right? On earth as it is in heaven. But it's our Father who art in heaven. It's very interesting that the actual word art, what it actually means. You say, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, the word. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. If you understand what art means, you can substitute, you can use it again instead of is later in the Lord's Prayer. So now the Lord's Prayer becomes, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as thou art in heaven. Art, a manifestation, an expression of God, as above, so below. That is and the grail, the cup. Well, I'll get into all of the sex and the tantra part of it, later, because that's gonna distract from the conversation that we're having about art, because we're talking about creativity as it relates to art. But the grail, the cup, is also a symbol of the womb, right? But you can also think of it as the crucible of alchemy, which is the process of transmutation. And what we are talking about, the secret sauce, what makes a work of art, any work of art, immortal, is that which is it is imbued with from above, such that it becomes an expression, a manifestation, a representation. It's the word, an embodiment of the word, a living, breathing embodiment of the word. The word made flesh. But what is that flesh? It's whatever medium you as an artist work with. It could be stone. It could be wood. It could be canvas. It could be oil on canvas. It could be charcoal on paper. And it could be vibrations on a guitar string. Because the flesh is the feminine, Mother Nature, divine Mother Nature. That's the flesh. The body of the universe is feminine. But in order to create, right, the womb, the cup, right, must be filled with something. And all it needs is a drop. The masculine contribution to creativity is a drop, an essence, a spark, a seed. And we know this. As above, so below. We know that the act of creation, well, for us humans, procreation, the male contribution is a single seed. So this comes back to what you were saying earlier about an artist and mastery and mastering the craft. Absolutely, that is all necessary. But without the divine spark, without the divine seed that is the impetus of that is fecundating that process, you end up with a heartless, soulless piece of craftsmanship. It can be excellent craftsmanship, but it lacks the divine spark. It's not gonna contain that divine spark, and that is what's missing from anything and everything that's generated by AI. Because AI is incapable of creating using with that spark as an impetus. Even if the only reason why I can create at all is it has some fragment, some shadowy, like ineffable vapor from the spark of the person who is putting in the prompt. And because they're using the word language to write that prompt, some tiny little sliver of divine inspiration can be there in that prompt and can play itself out in the process. But ultimately, what gets pumped out the other side is it's going to be slop, in the same way that hyper processed food has like a tiny fraction of the nutrition and the vitality and the energy that the whole food does, that it's made from, because it's something about the processing, the hyper processing of it, that strips it of that vitality. So when we talk about what or how does an artist or a designer or anyone in the creative space differentiate themselves from AI and differentiate and make themselves indispensable in a world that seems to be going in that ever more mechanical direction. My contention is that it's by doubling down on our divinity, on the creative spark within.
Yeah, that's the only way. It's the same thing with branding.
That's right.
Which is you are trying to explain to the world the secrets of the universe, the secrets of being. In my line of work, I have to try to explain archetypes and try to get the essence of the founder or the business into their visuals, into their communications. And it's a very similar process. But I find that there are a lot of clients that can only reach a certain level. They don't understand how their business could look and can potentially affect people or the world if they can tap into the right archetype that their business is trying to embody. Now, roping this back to AI, the problem is the people that are building it and programming it. Well, what morals, what are they tapping into to make this thing and to train it, right? That's why we have AI that exists in the way we do. And then all of us who are on the outside looking at how people are trying to interact with these systems and try to bring creativity forth, we're thinking there's a way to do it. And like you said, a spark may come through, and that's up to the user, right? And the only way that the user is going to be able to get that spark with the AI is, well, if they do work on themselves, I guess. The more experience, more practice, more living, more experiential knowledge.
It's interesting. Well, first of all, let me very quickly get a comment in by Benjamin here. He says, yes, certain works of art possess timeless quality that resonates across generations. AI generated works, however, lack that dimension, as they are not created with consciousness or intention in the same way. Yeah, he's basically saying the same thing, and he's expressing it in a metaphysical scientific perspective, that this spark that we're talking about is conveyed via consciousness, right? And however, what's also important to know is that there is a great deal of art and media and content being created today that goes right over most people's heads. They're not conscious, they're not aware of the powerful symbols and allegories and archetypes that are being communicated to them. They unconsciously, intuitively connect, but they don't consciously connect. So what happens is they connect on a superficial level. Like consciously they can only connect on a superficial level, and then unconsciously they're connecting on a deeper level. And what's happening is they fall in love with that deeper level, but they associate their love with the superficial thing. And that's why they get really frustrated, for example, with modern Star Trek and modern Star Wars, because modern Star Trek and modern Star Wars is copying all the superficial stuff, right? But it's like AI slop, modern Star Wars and modern Star Trek is made by committee. It's made by a big machine. It's made by a corporation seeking shareholder value. It's not made by people who are like divinely inspired. This is the way George Lucas was.
Exactly. I was going to bring up cosplay, for instance. It's the easiest one to bring up. I've attended lots of cons in the past as an exhibitor, but also as a fan myself of a lot of these properties, because I was just drawn to archetype as a kid. And at 12 years old, I found a book on Jung and I read it, and I've been a Jungian ever since. But if you go to one of these events, there are a lot of people that cosplay, and they love the characters that they're cosplaying, and they can give you any number of reasons why they're dressed as this character and why they love this character. But again, like you said, it only goes so far. If they were to explore that a lot deeper, they would understand where that comes from, where that, to use a word you employed before, where that longing comes from. It's not a desire, because it's an actual longing, and it translates into hours and hours of learning how to make the armor and in acting, posing like the character. Why? Well, they need to go deeper within themselves to figure that out. But these characters exist for a reason. They were written for a reason, right? They're in a story for a reason. And
no, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and when we read these stories or watch these stories, we experience a catharsis, but because these characters resonate with us, or they tell the story in a way that archetype can only tell a story to impart information to us.
Well, when we were kids, right, we and watched Star Wars, right, we identify either with Han Solo or Luke Skywalker or Princess Leia, like the girls identified with Princess Leia, and they wanted, when they played those games, they were pretending to be those characters. As we get older, certainly as I got older, I never had any longing or desire of any kind to dress up like any character from any property. Instead, I felt the deep longing to embody the qualities that they embodied. In other words, to embody the qualities of a hero.
Yeah,
In the
I
case
wanted
of
to be a
in the
Jedi as
case
a
of
kid.
Luke Skywalker, to embody uh, the qualities of a Christified master, of an enlightened Jedi,
Actually,
of a, because, you know.
that's very important that you bring him up. Have you talked on this channel about that reaction of people crying when they saw Luke Skywalker appear on The Mandalorian? Because that's very important. That's significant,
Yes,
archetypically.
yeah,
Okay.
I've talked about it, and I also did a whole section on it on my 2.5 hour documentary on the Skywalker saga.
Yeah, that is really important, because a lot of, and there was a lot of people making fun of people that were crying, but the point is that they were crying for a reason, but they didn't understand why they were crying.
That's right. But
It,
especially that the fact that Luke Skywalker is there hacking to pieces Imperial droids. Like
AIs, yes.
he's like machines, right? Droids,
Yep.
AI droid, but they're Imperial droids.
Yeah.
And it's the Christ cutting down the Antichrist.
Right. These people were shedding tears, because this is the Luke Skywalker we were promised, that we always wanted to see, that we have not seen on screen for like over 30 decades. 30 decades, 3 decades. And so that's where the tears came from. They experienced, like you said, the crucified master being the crucified master.
But it's also very timely, and the synchronicity, the serendipity as it relates to the end times and the prophecy, the promise that the Christ would return. And whether people are conscious of that or not, that is a very real phenomenon. The Christ has returned, and that scene manifested it, expressed it, made the prophecy that was up until now has only been in the Word. It made the Word flesh, just for a moment, just for a few seconds, but long enough that people could like relate to it and grasp it and say, my God, it's the Word made flesh. The Christ has returned. The Christ has returned, and he's slaying Satan and all the minions of hell. And so that's an overwhelming emotional experience to see the return of the Christ. And that's what a story, an allegory, and a symbol brought to life. That's what makes that so powerful, because we're literally talking about the Word made flesh. Now, I don't know if you can use one of the video generating platforms. I don't know if it's possible, or image generating platforms, and prompting it. If you created a visually identical sequence to that sequence and then played it for the world, my feeling is, if frame by frame they were identical, but one was AI generated and one was created by the CGI artists and technicians and craftspeople and the storyboard artists and Jon Favreau and everybody else working on The Mandalorian to make that scene happen, versus an AI that just generated it, scene for like frame to frame, shot per shot, where you practically can't tell the difference to the naked eye. I guarantee you, nobody anywhere in the world would have cried.
No, they would have thought it was cool, but they wouldn't have cried.
Nobody would have had that reaction to it. There was something that the seed, the spark, the truth was being carried through the medium. But no machine, the Antichrist cannot convey the Christ. If that's it. Right? It can only oppose it. It can only obstruct it. It can only obscure it and twist, tempt, and corrupt it and make it fall, because that's its nature, that's its purpose. And yet, the CGI teams worked with computers, and they worked with machinery, and they worked with mechanical nature, and all of them have a mechanical mind, and all of them are in a body that they're borrowing from mechanical nature. All of that, all of mechanical nature, this is what people who study gnosis only intellectually, and they come away saying, oh, Gnostics hate nature. Gnostics say the creator spirit of the universe is evil because he created nature, and so they say that. So Gnostics believe that God is evil. Like it's so wrong. Their thinking is so wrong, because they're trying to understand it with a mechanical, rational mind, with their own mechanical AI, which will not let them comprehend or understand the truth. And yet all Gnostics have to use the mind. This is the paradox, right? This is the great dance of the yin and the yang, that which we call the Tao, of this interface, this interrelationship between these binary opposites, light and darkness, good and evil. It's like, of course, evil is not going to do good, but we cannot deny, we cannot avoid that every good act ever committed by anybody was done because of the existence of evil. And that every hero rises to a challenge that was put forth by this thing that we call evil. Without the evil, without the challenge, there's nothing to rise to. There is no heroism, there is no virtue, there is no hero. It's the same with mechanical nature. And then there's the fact that the hero needs weapons, right? Perseus needs the weapons, or the fellowship needs the gifts. And who do they get the gifts from? They get the gifts from Galadriel, who gives them the elvish rope and the elven bread and the daggers and so on and so forth. In the same way that Perseus
we can go deeper into that, because the first gifts that the hobbits get were from dead kings, interestingly enough.
And
the dead king is an archetype that the dead king has to die in order for resurrection to occur.
Okay, so
but I am getting too Jungian in the discussion.
Perseus, where I was going with this is Perseus also gets his weapons from the Divine Mother,
yes.
Athena, and so does Theseus.
Yep.
And so that's the common thread. What you're bringing into the end is
that's internal. That's different.
It's another level. But now we're talking about Christification, and the weapons that the Fellowship get from the dead kings are all swords.
Yeah.
Which are all symbols of, well, they're symbols of two things. One, the phallus, but the second thing is the spinal column. So both the phallus and the spinal column, embodied in the sword and embodied in Gandalf's staff, who is the character who dies and resurrects between the Fellowship and the Two Towers. That is related to the fact that this is the 33rd episode of Attlas Information for this year. This is episode 33. That relates directly to the 33 vertebrae of the spinal column.
Cool.
In other words, the phallus, the spinal column, the number 33, 3 times 3 is 9. 9 is the 9th sphere on the tree of life, which is Yesod, which is the foundation. It is the 9-sided cubic stone of the alchemists. It is the cornerstone, the rock, Pater, upon which Christ builds his church. All acts of creation are sexual. All acts of creation are sexual. You cannot create without sex. And the spark, the seed, the divine seed that you feel in your heart comes into manifestation. You can only imbue it onto the physical plane through the 9th sphere, which is Yesod, which is the vital body, which is your vital energy, your vitality, your chi, your prana, that you pour forth from yourself, the blood, sweat, and tears into the thing that you're working on. Because the thing that you're working on is your child, it's your baby. It's the thing that you are birthing into the world. That's an act of sexuality. That's an act of creation. To unite the masculine, the seed, the spark, the mind, manas, with the body, the flesh, the Hume. Hume means earth. To unite Manas and Hume is the human adventure. Human, Hume, Manas. Any human enterprise by which you are manifesting or bringing forth something into the world and making the word flesh into some medium, that is a sexual act. It is impossible to do that without sex, the union of masculine and feminine forces. But a union of masculine and feminine forces that preserves and transmutes the energy and has it rise up an atom, up the spinal column, up the 33 vertebrae of the spinal column, the 33 degrees of the Master Mason. That is the staff. That is the Excalibur, which the Lady of the Lake held aloft from the bosom of the water. Right? The farcical aquatic ceremony.
Yeah, you phrased it that way. I was trying not to laugh. Yeah.
So
well said.
But that all of that symbology, all of that is the same archetype, because you know that you can create, and many people do, by spilling the sexual force, by expelling it. You know, and maybe you can talk a little bit about this as an artist, as a creator. Those artists, those creators who essentially use their art as a form of masturbation.
It's interesting when you were talking about this. There's also burnout for artists who are not using their art as masturbation, but how shall we say, to when you're, maybe it's poetic, when you're casting pearls to swine, when you're working for you know, you're working 14, 12 hours days for clients or for the corporate machine, and you're being creative, and you have to be creative, and you keep being told, no, do it this way, do this, no, client wants to see this, no, this is what we're trying to get out. You burn out because you're throwing all your light, all that sexual energy, all that is going to waste.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because I have a meme. I always have a meme, Ed.
Okay.
I have a meme. Oh, wait a minute. Better add that to stay. There you go. Exploitation. The word you were looking for is exploitation, not expulsion.
Exploitation.
Right? But exploitation, right? And egos, the Black Lodge, mechanical nature, its purpose is to exploit our human resources. So why would a corporation be any different than that which exploits, right, human and natural resources?
Right.
And AI that exploits human creative capital resources, and malware that exploits system resources, right? It's all the same thing. But the things that the egos want to exploit are our sexual energy and our consciousness. Just like the phone that I was talking about last week is exploiting our attention. It's constant vying for our attention and stealing our attention. So it's all the same thing. And what you're describing when you talk about burnout, well, you have a limited amount of resources. I mean, they can regenerate, you know, with rest and recovery. But if you're constantly like Chaplin in modern times, just, you know, going through the gears and grinding through the gears, and there's people in industries, especially the video game industry and other industries, that they experience what they call crunch time.
Yeah.
And but also what you're describing is that those creative juices, and we use these words, we use this language. I don't have to make this stuff up. We talk about creative juices. Well, what are creative juices? It's like the juicy steak. It's what made that meat alive. It was the vitality, the energy, so when your creative juices are constantly being drained, it's like the life is being sucked out of you. So of course you experience burnout. Of course you experience these types of things because the big machine is doing what it does, because the only thing that it can do, and that is exploit. Where is the one that I'm looking for? There it is. So because a machine needs energy. If a machine doesn't constantly consume energy, it shuts off. It dies. Just like you and I, if we stop breathing, we die. If we stop eating, we die sooner or later. Because that body that we are in is a machine. So all of mechanical nature, its very purpose is to consume. And interestingly enough, when we do that as artists, as creatives, we are feeding the machine. We are feeding in the same way that I've described in the past, that a sperm that fecundates an egg, the sperm dies. The sperm dies. Just like a seed dies. It is consumed. And the creative spark is consumed by whatever medium that you've chosen to put it into. But in that consumption, in that union, there's a transformation, there's a transmutation that is possible. And that is what all artists and all potential parents are praying for and looking for and striving for. That the egg and the sperm die, and in their sacrifice is born the zygote. And the zygote begins to replicate and grow and take on a life of its own and become an embryo. But this is the act of transmutation. This is the act of taking something mechanical and material and making it something more, imbuing it with something that makes it come alive in a way, in a new way, in a way that it wasn't quite alive before. You know, like we don't have the same, we don't feel the same cracking open an egg as we do cracking open an egg and a baby chick falls out of it, like an embryo. I don't know if that's ever happened to you. It's happened to me. When I've cracked open an egg, and instead of having a nice yellow yolk and egg white, a half dead, basically aborted chick embryo fell out of the egg. It's a very different feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Because an egg is an egg. It's not an embryo. It's not right? It's an egg has not been fertilized yet. It's alive, but it's not alive in the same way that an egg containing an embryo is alive. And you can feel that. If that ever happens to you, you crack open an egg and a half baked chick embryo falls out of it, you feel that. So as an artist, as a designer, as a creator of any kind, when you put that creative energy, that creative force that was prompted by that longing, by that divine spark to harness and give that creative energy, the blood, sweat, and tears and to pour it into some inanimate aspect of the mineral kingdom of if you're a gardener, if you're a landscape architect or a gardener or whatever, right? You're dealing with the plant kingdom. And so your design, your artwork is alive, and you pour your blood, sweat, and tears in so that these plants express themselves in the most profound, beautiful way that they can do. In other words, so that all the plants in the garden can self-actualize to the maximum of their potential in accordance with their level of being. That's self-actualization. That's what Maslow put at the very pinnacle of the hierarchy of needs. And this is what a sculptor does when a sculptor looks at a block of marble or a block of any stone. The divine spark, the divine seed, the longing is there to express something, to make the word flesh. And in that case, the flesh is stone, the body of the divine mother, but it's in the mineral kingdom. And in the process of chipping away, little by little by little by little, eventually what emerges from that block of stone is this divine expression, the word made flesh. The famous example is Michelangelo's David, who's 18 feet tall, by the way. And of course, it's David from the Bible. It's the David who slay Goliath with what? With a stone, from his sling. And so that entire episode of the Bible, that entire allegory and story and narrative and heroism, Michelangelo embodied in a static statue of David, who he carved to be the same height as Goliath, out of stone, because it was the stone in his sling that made David as mighty as, if not mightier than, Goliath. And this is why David stands apart. Because unconsciously, when you look at David, you say, the 4.5 foot tall weakling hath been made Goliath in stone. And what is that stone? It's the philosophical stone. It's a 9-sided cubic stone that is slung in the right way, that is wielded in the right way, using the alm of life, getting the acceleration, spiraling over and over and over again, getting faster and faster and faster, and being released just in the right time, just in the right way, to slay the monster, to slay the beast. And all that remains is the larger than life David, the king of Israel, the people of Isis, Ra, Elohim, the people of divine masculine, divine feminine, and the union of divine masculine and feminine. Everything that I've just described to you is in David, the statue of David. Because all that I've described to you is in there. You could not write a prompt. There is no way, even if you have the most incredible 3D printer ever made that is able to 3D print marble, there is no prompt that you could put into words to make an AI comprehend, understand everything that I've just shared with you and imbue it into his 3D printed version of David. This is why David will never be duplicated by any machine. Because it took me 10 minutes to explain in words everything that's in the statue of David, why it's one of the 7 man-made wonders of the world in art. Because there are more beautiful sculptures. There are more impressive sculptures. But David stands alone. This is the secret sauce. This is the magic. This is the je ne sais quoi. This is the X factor that Eduardo was talking about. So now the question is, how do we connect with that? How do we get that? You know, how do we? Because this is all well and good to talk about this and say, oh, you need divine inspiration, you need the spark, you need this, you need that. But how does a creative go about applying themselves in this way so that, simply put, how do we mere mortals make the word become flesh? That's the question.
I haven't heard it put quite like that before, but I can tell you we talked about burnout before, and that's an age-old question for any creative. How do you survive burnout? What do you do? And if you search YouTube, there are 1,000,000,001 videos on the subject. But I can tell you my version of getting over burnout. I would feel there's no energy, there's no creativity left. I'm basically a walking zombie. I'm a shell of myself. That's normally how most burnt out creatives feel. So for me, I always loved life drawing. Life drawing, you know, an entire day of life drawing, and I could be jazzed. I just have the energy again. But now that I don't have access to art school or life drawing or the really good life models, what do I do? Well, I found it, pardon me, cafe sketching, just drawing people at a cafe. And you start putting your spin. You're not thinking about anything. You're just drawing, you're sketching, or you're painting. And I'm doing it for fun. I'm doing it just to do it, with no pressure. And eventually, something starts to speak inside, and the creativity comes back. Now, it could be a week, it could be a month, but just being creative for the sake of being creative seems to bring it back, at least for me. Going into nature and just drawing plants, you know, adding a bit of watercolor to that, or just drawing a street or a really cool looking house, just to do it. It's not going to see the light of day. I'm not doing it for content. I do it for me.
No, okay. So let me follow up on that. When you say you're doing it for you, what is it about doing it that you do it? Like, can we peel back the layers on that? I'm not doing it for anybody else. I'm not doing it for money. I'm not doing it for anything. So what am I doing it for?
I'm doing it for me. I love making marks on a piece of paper. I love using the specific pen or pencil. I love splattering ink on it. It's almost like a childhood glee mixed with a little grown-up, I'm doing this thing and I want it to be fun. And I'm observing, and I'm enjoying the process of observing and transcribing what I see.
Okay. would it be fair? I don't want to put words in your mouth. Would it be fair to describe what you just described? Would it be fair to call that play?
Yes.
Yeah.
But you have to play as a creative. You're not going to figure out how to use any medium or what you're capable of if you don't play.
Now,
Now,
here's the thing. Here's the thing.
sorry, I just want to. The system does not encourage play because it wants you to be, or we're force fed this since we're young. You have to be ready to hit the ground running, and you have to be creative, and you have to be good right off the bat. Well, that kind of thinking does not encourage play.
Okay, because you have to be, okay, the machine doesn't, okay, machines don't play.
No.
Okay, so there are machines and devices that you can play with and that can help you play, like a pair of skis can be very playful when you put them on and you go and you ski for fun. It's very playful, right? So the skateboard, bicycle, these are all machines, and but you can go and play on them. But here's what I want to tease out in more detail. Playing has no objective, does it? There's no like you don't. In other words, a machine, the machine, the corporation, the whatever, it says you have to be efficient, you have to be effective, you have to be productive. But when you play, you're not worrying about being productive.
No.
You're not worrying about being efficient. Playing is not an efficient use of your time, right? And it's not effective. Effective at what? What are you affecting?
According to the machine, it's not efficient or an efficient use of time, but in the grand scheme of things, if the creative doesn't play, then you don't get closer to that small, still voice that speaks to you.
No. I get that.
But other people out listening might not.
But no, I think it's important for us to embrace that. No, it's not efficient.
Right, correct. It's not quote unquote efficient.
It's not an efficient use of time. And the reason why we want to embrace that is because who said that divinity was efficient? No, mechanical nature is efficient. The law of conservation of energy is a mechanical law of nature. But philosophically, okay, like one of the most beautiful lines of all of Scripture from the Talmud appears in the movie Schindler's List. When they give him the ring, and I'm gonna get choked up, I'm gonna start crying. When they give him the ring, and it has an inscription from the Talmud, and the inscription says, "He that saves a single soul saves the world entire." That's not efficient. It's not efficient for somebody to run into a burning building to try to save someone else.
No.
Especially if the person running in is 25 years old and the person he's saving is 80 years old. This is Spock would not be impressed. He would say the benefit of the young, vital person who has their whole life ahead of them is worth more than the old 80-year-old who's about to die from smoke inhalation. So it's better to let the old person die than to risk the life of the 25-year-old. That's the way logic and a machine and a computer would make that evaluation.
Right.
But look at even animals, dogs and cats, throwing themselves in harm's way, right? And look at the extraordinary suffering and sacrifice made by artists for various different things, or made by prophets or saints or martyrs throwing their entire lives away, so to speak, for some principled reason. And the logic, the mind looks at that and says, what a waste. What a waste of a life. What a senseless sacrifice. Right? Heroism, virtue, divinity. It is not, you know that greed is one of the 7 deadly sins. But you know what the flip side of greed is? Miserliness. To be miserly, to be cheap, and to be cheap with one's life, to be cheap with what one gives to others, and what one withholds and holds back. So what does play teach us? When we throw ourselves with reckless abandon, to me, one of the great adult versions of play is dancing, and real dancing with partners, with a man and a woman, or 2 men, or 2 women. Let's not be old-fashioned about it, but 2 individuals, and with reckless abandon, giving themselves to the music and to one another, and the dance, this new thing that is emergent, that is not going to be recorded, that is not going to be remembered, that is not going to be, oh, quick, let's get a selfie while we're taking that. No, you completely lose yourself to the dance and the moment. And it's just a moment in time. And you put all of yourself into it. And afterwards, you can be dripping with sweat. And if you dance the night away, you will go home exhausted. But that's the dance, that's the play. And there is value in that. The value of letting go and just giving yourself fully, together with and embodying the word become flesh. And just this moment, this I don't even know what to call it other than a play. It's like Shakespeare said, the play is the thing. It's not efficient. It's decidedly inefficient. But to embrace that. Why? Because in embracing that inefficiency, you deny the mechanicity that wants to govern the process. Who governs the process? Who drives the creative process? This determines everything. Because even if you have the divine spark, even if you have the divine longing, even if you have all the energy, but all of that becomes subservient to mechanicity, to the mechanical mind, saying, oh no, it has to be this way and this way and this way, and it's got to be this way and that way. Like, for example, the A-type personality that says it's got to be perfect, it's got to be perfectly aligned, it's got to be this and that and the other thing, right? Then everything is flipped on its head. There is a perfection in imperfection. That is the divine sense of perfection. Not the mechanical mind's A-type personality sense of what perfect is.
Like the Japanese art of fixing broken things with gold.
Yes, which if you give me a minute, it'll come to me. That's right. They fix broken pottery with gold and with other things, and yeah, and that adds to the beauty of the piece now. It creates this new thing which has these scars, and the scars give it character and life and meaning and significance, right?
Kintsugi.
That's right, kintsugi. And so I love that line from Scent of a Woman when they're the tango is not hard. The tango is not hard. If you get tangoed up, you just tango on. That's the beauty of the tango. And the tango, as a dancer, I would know this. The tango is all about tension. In the tango, the two individuals dancing together, and that's why in Argentina and elsewhere, two men can dance the tango because it's so adversarial. Two alpha males can square off with each other like two matadors in an arena and dance the tango because there is a repulsion and there's an attraction, and it's in the tension between these two forces of gravitation and radiation that creates that surface tension upon which the beautiful dance unfolds and the beautiful story unfolds in the form of a dance, whether it's between a man and a woman or two men. And they can be I'm talking about heterosexual men will dance the tango because of this tension. And it's also play. But in the case of the two men dancing a tango, it's actually like play fighting. It's a very, very interesting, unique phenomenon. But again, it brings back this idea, this notion, and this embracing of play, of the childlike, reckless abandon, but really carefree is the word that we're looking for. When you're in the coffee shop sketching, what do you care about? What are you concerned about?
Honestly, what am I concerned about? I'm trying to. The only thing I'm concerned about is maybe there's a shape I want to capture, or there's a personality I want to capture, but that's it. The rest is play.
Okay,
because that informs the play for me, and I enjoy that.
Okay, but that's not. But I would say that's part of your play.
Yes,
that's part of the play.
Right. I mean, I was trained in illustration and animation, so I love playing with story and character.
So there's only one thing you're concerned about, or there's only one thing you care about, and that's playing.
Mm-hmm.
What you care about is the play itself, but the definition of play is to be carefree.
Right.
So in fact, you are caring about not caring. The only things you care about is
exactly, because if I don't care about the rules, then I'm not going to discover a new shape or a new way to draw eyes, or wow, I never would have drawn a face this way if I was just stuck to the fundamentals and that's all I did.
Aha, okay. We're getting some good stuff here.
All right.
This is the practical stuff now, right? This is practical now. We're talking about creative, but this can be applied across the board anywhere in your life because you are a co-creator of your life. And I'm not talking about manifesting your desires now. We can skewer that sacrificial pig after Eduardo has gone up, because I know that his time is running short here.
Yeah, I've got about 5 minutes.
Yeah. So by being carefree, you don't care about the outcome.
Correct.
You don't have a specific thing in mind saying it's gotta be like this. It's gotta fit inside this box. And because you are not concerned about the outcome, You are free to discover and allow that which can flow through you to flow through you and show you an outcome that you just expressed was completely unexpected.
Right. Sometimes a brushstroke can inform the rest of the piece because it's completely unexpected. You know, to quote Bob Ross, all these little mistakes, let's make them birds.
So, like everybody who watches my live streams know that they're completely unscripted, unplanned, unrehearsed. And even today, Eduardo came on today with no plan, no script, no rehearsal, no storyboard, no nothing, no bullet points of what we were going to talk about. All I said was, Eduardo, just follow my lead and I'll ask you questions. And he said, okay. And here we have arrived at the most practical, metaphysical, scientific practice that you can have as a creative to strengthen your EMP, your empathy, which is your weapon against the machines, which is your weapon against AI, that AI cannot do. AI cannot play. It can mimic it, maybe, it can pretend, but it cannot do what Eduardo just said he does, and what all of you can do, which is to be and to act and to be done. To be done by the word made flesh. You are the flesh. And anything that you touch and express beyond using your skills and experience, that is an extension of your flesh. The word made flesh through you. But the play is the thing. The play is the practice and the exercise that gets you into this point of not caring about the outcome, of not predetermining, not conditioning, not sullying, and not corrupting that which must flow through you by determining what the outcome is going to be ahead of time, or determining what it needs to be. Like when you're concerned about the outcome, you're not playing, because when you play, you don't know what the outcome is going to be. But when you're concerned about the outcome, you're in a place other than play. You know where you are? You're in fear.
Yeah.
Because fear is control. The need to control the outcome is fear. But when you play, you're carefree. And if you're carefree, that means you are free of fear. This is the most practical approach that you can take to life, to creativity. You play like we've been here playing now for 2 hours, Eduardo and I, and all of you listening in and watching. We've just been playing. I had no idea we were going to get to this point. I didn't have an answer when we began 2 hours ago. But now we do. Here it is. With a couple minutes to spare because Eduardo has to go.
Yeah. Yeah, on that note, I really do have to go. There are some plants that need to get into a garden.
Well, listen, I want to thank you for stopping by today, and have a good rest of the day, and I hope all your chores and your other obligations and responsibilities go well.
All right, thank you, sir.
And then I'll touch base with you later, and then you and I have a follow-up.
Yeah,
all right.
And I hope if there are any other creatives out there watching, just get messy, mess up that piece of paper. Don't care about perfection. Play.
That's right. Okay, take care, Eduardo.
All right, take care, Attila. Thanks for having me.
All right. Okay. So, to play, the play is the thing, right? All the world's a stage, and we are but players on't. And the other thing that mechanical nature, that AI cannot do, AI cannot play, but also AI cannot have sex. AI has no concept of tantra. It has no concept of real creativity. It's a ultra processed. It is AI is to creativity what the photocopier and I don't know what the right uh, those vegan meat. You know that vegan meat that I can't believe it's not meat. That fake meat. Yeah, that's what AI is, right? That's like these corporations that are trying to make burgers for vegans. So vegans and vegetarians can feel good about eating a burger. Meanwhile, you look at the ingredients list of those things and the chemicals and the processing, the ultra processing that everything goes through to make it, look or feel or taste like a burger. It's an ultra processed food. And even if there might technically be some nutrition in there, there's no vitality, there's no energy, right? If anything, it's going to be a negative energy suck on you as an individual. It's going to drain you of energy, because I know eating like junk food, to me, how you get the junk food rot a little later after eating the junk food. Like if you binge on some crap, ultra processed something, right? Like a few hours later, you crash. It's not just a sugar crash. You're not just crashing off of the physical contents of what you ate. You're crashing because as that ultra processed food goes through your body, it's sucking the life out of you. It's draining the vitality out of you, because your body is desperately trying to get that shit out of your body. It's trying to extract whatever it can extract from it, but then it's trying to get that all the toxins and everything else in that stuff out of the body. And it'll use as much energy as required in order to do that. But also the molecules of the substance of the food have been so ultra processed, they're so void of any energy that they're actually literally like a sponge absorbing and sucking vital energy out of your body as it passes through your body. And that's AI slop. That's AI generated garbage. That's like most of the content that they stream. Now, not all content, right? But most of the content that these streaming platforms create are no different. They're not divinely inspired. There's no universal truth. There's no timeless anything. Like you watch something on Netflix or Prime Video or whatever, right? These streaming services, they take one little story and they stretch it out over 3 seasons, right? Or whatever. And it's like, what's that? That's 10 hours, that's 30 hours, right? What they probably could have done in a 90-minute movie, they stretch out over 30 hours on over 3 seasons. Okay, that means there's a hell of a lot of crush rock filler, okay? In terms of really bad junk food hamburgers, there's a lot of sawdust in that burger patty, okay? And it's just like eating some crap ground beef burger that's sucking the life out of you. That's what that stuff is doing. And we call it what it is. And anything that AI generates, it's that plus worse. So if they start making this their content, and there's lots of content on YouTube that's AI slop. And what I mean by that is AI generated voiceovers, AI generated images, and AI generated text. Because right now, if I wanted to, it would probably take me maybe an hour. Maybe. I could go on to ChatGPT. I could get it to write me some kind of an essay, but I would tell it was a script for a documentary, and I'd give it a topic, and it would generate a script. I would take that script, cut it, and paste it into an online voiceover generator. I would choose the voice, male or female. These websites have multiple different actors, virtual actors that you can choose from, which basically styles of voices. And I would say, okay, here's the text. This is the voice I want. Now generate a 30-minute, well, however long the text is, generate a voiceover based on this text. It would generate the voiceover, pump it out. I would take that, throw it into a video editing program. Then I could go to an AI video editor, or sorry, not a video, yeah, video editor, an image editor, and take chunks of text and cut and paste it into the prompts to get the AI generator to generate video and still images. And I could get it to, and I could also pick a bunch of stock footage, stock images from various different sources, throw them into the AI editor, and say, now this is the voiceover. I want you to make a montage and make a sequenced series of slideshow and video that lines up and matches the voiceover. And the AI video editor would take all the pieces and create the documentary footage to match the text being spoken and the voice speaking it. And now the first time I did this, it would probably be garbage because, it would be the first time I did it. But over time, with some practice, I could probably pull this off in maybe an hour, 2 hours at the most, and make a 30-minute YouTube video. Is it any wonder that YouTube is filled with videos like this that I'm describing to you? AI voice and AI images, or just like a generic slideshow of images and video. It's like this completely AI. Now, there's a person behind it that did all this stuff and put it together, but it's slop AI content. It's just generic, remanufactured, reprocessed. There's no spark. There's nothing. It's just purely for eyeballs, for views, to boost the channel on the algorithm, YouTube's algorithm, and all that kind of stuff. In other words, it's just mechanical AI slop designed to feed the machine, the platform on which it's on, which that platform makes its revenue through advertising and through memberships. And so the more people watching for longer, the better. So, of course, YouTube hasn't made any stipulations banning AI content. No, they don't care. The more, the merrier. And the same thing is going to happen for all the other streaming platforms. And just like junk food, because there's no real nutrition there, people are going to get more and more frustrated. They're going to feel more and more unfulfilled, not because the content isn't violent enough or sexy enough or erotic enough or scary enough or whatever. Right? The content is going to hit all of those buttons. But like Benjamin said earlier, it's going to be superficial. It's going to be empty. There's no soul food. Nothing to feed the soul. Nothing to feed the inner human being. Just the mechanical outer shell, the mechanical machine. Right? To titillate and to excite and to shock and awe, right? It's like an amusement park ride. Like, I don't know if you remember a few years ago, they made a movie called Gravity. And this Gravity movie it won a bunch of awards and Oscars and everything else because of, oh, the cinematography and this and that, and oh, and how they shot it, and it was all this technical marvel. Yeah, it might have been a marvel of technical filmmaking, but the movie is shit. The movie is garbage. There is nothing in there of any value. It is simply an amusement park ride for the 90 minutes or 2 hours or however long that movie is. It's completely forgettable. Right? When was the last time you watched Gravity? Because you just have to watch Gravity. Then ask yourself, when was the last time you watched Lawrence of Arabia or Apocalypse Now or Doctor Strangelove or Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or Shawshank Redemption, or because you just had to rewatch it because you rewatch it at least once a year, or Forrest Gump, or any number of other movies that just move the soul and touch your heart. Gravity doesn't do any of that. It's an amusement park ride. And a lot of this AI content is that. In other words, it is sensory and psychological pornography. That's all it is. It's porn. There's more than just X-rated pornography. There's pornography of the senses. There's pornography of violence. We know that. There's pornography of horror. There's pornography of emotion. You know what we call those? Romantic comedies, right? And all those Hallmark made to video, direct to video films that just pull on the heartstrings of women's sentimentality. And it's made for women. It's made for women to watch and bawl their eyes out. And it just pulls at their heartstrings to make them do that. That's emotional pornography. Now, what makes it so? What makes it so? What makes it so is this. Oops. Mechanical nature wants your vital energy, your sexual energy. And when you're bawling your eyes out at a sentimental movie that's pulling your heartstrings and tugging on your heartstrings just for the sake of doing so. I'm not talking about, watching a movie that's sharing something beautiful and you're crying tears of joy, or you're crying tears of because it's so beautiful. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about some schlocky, cheesy romantic comedy, and the guy goes back and to see the girl or whatever the case may be, and then you're bawling your eyes out because, oh my God, he went back to her and she's so good, and it's like, it's emotional pornography. You're spilling your creative energy into this thing. And the same can be true for romance novels. But let's not gang up on women here with this stuff. Men are no different with their violent films, or their horror films, or their war movies, right? Or Quentin Tarantino, or their crime dramas. That's another big one that guys like the Guy Ritchie films, right? Where there's these low-life, street-level crime movies where men get to vicariously fulfill all of their fantasies of being tough guys and wise guys and beating the crap out of the people that get in your way, and like, it's pornography. That's what it is. If the reason why you watch those movies is to indulge in that and say, oh yeah, did you see the way that guy just pounded the face, like our sports movies. Now, there's a kind of sports movie that that exemplifies the triumph of the human spirit over adversity, right? So we want to be careful not to paint everything with the same brush. There are sports movies like Rocky, like Seabiscuit, like Chariots of Fire, and like Hoosiers, and Remember the Titans, right? Which are based on real stories, real events, and which highlight the triumph of the human spirit in the face of adversity. And these movies can bring tears to your eye. But if you're observing yourself, it's because your heart has swollen 10 times too big, like in The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. Because these movies are doing exactly how I described it, showing you, making the word flesh, showing you an embodiment of from history most of the time. Rocky was made up, but I mean, even that was loosely built on an actual real boxer and a real series of events that Sly Stallone fictionalized into his script. But so in making the word flesh and experiencing that, your heart grows and swells and bursts. And when your heart bursts like that, of course you're going to break down in tears because it's overwhelming. But you're being overwhelmed with superior emotion. You're seeing beauty and truth. And I remind you what John Keats said at the end of an ode on a Grecian urn: beauty is truth, truth beauty. That is all you can know in life and all you need to know. And no AI can do this. No AI can cause your heart to burst. But an AI can pump out 1,000 Hallmark straight-to-video movies, and it can pump out 1,000 straight-to-video, kung fu or revenge action movies, right? Where it's like, oh, we have your daughter, we want the ransom, da da da, right? And it's like, oh, I'm a man with specific skills, and I just have one word for you: run. Like, I mean, like, it's just, I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of the John Wick series. I'm sorry, right? I don't enjoy violence for the sake of violence. And maybe it was after I watched Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan that I was finally turned off violence in movies. Maybe it was just after, like, being shown, oh, hang on a second here, right? Like, when someone comes along and pulls no punches, so to speak. I really, really enjoy Quentin Tarantino's films on a number of levels. But for me, every single one of his movies fails in the end for me because of the violence porn, the ultra-violent porn, especially Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but also Inglourious Bastards and Django Unchained. The ultra-violence ruins it for me. And when they ask him why do your films have to be so violent, he says, because it's so much fun. Well, it's fun for him, and he's making the movies for him, so good for him, right? But that's why, I mean, his films will always stand apart and stand alone in their own unique subgenre, and they will never achieve the heights of films like Lawrence of Arabia or, Godfather or Apocalypse Now or Blade Runner or any, like, even or even Saving Private Ryan, which arguably is more violent. And why? Because the violence in Saving Private Ryan is not pornography. The violence serves the purpose. And what is the purpose of that film? Like Schindler's List, what was the purpose of those films? To reveal the truth of man's inhumanity towards man. And that in the midst of hell, a single life can make all the difference. A single soul can make all the difference. And a single soul can emerge from the very depths of hell to redeem in some small way the horrors. I'm sorry, but for all of his talent and for all of his skill and all of his craftsmanship, I'm sorry, but Quentin Tarantino has not made a single film that has risen to that level. Technically, yes. But in every other sense, he's gotten 90% of the way there and then ruins it with violence porn. And then it just dives into just craftsmanship. Like I was describing before, many sculptors make many sculptures out there, none of which can touch David. None of them come even close to David. And rest assured, in a few short years, there's going to be an AI that can make a movie, quote, in the style of Quentin Tarantino, and you will not be able to tell. Because an AI, a machine, can become a very good craftsperson, can be very skilled and crafty, because Quentin Tarantino has tricks and techniques that he uses and employs. And an AI can mimic that. But what can an AI not mimic? What can an AI not touch? And what can an AI never duplicate or replicate in any way, shape, or form? The divine spark. The divine mother, Devi Kundalini Shakti, our creative energy. And the divine spark, the mind, the manas, that which comes from within, as above, so below. What AI can mimic is what's below, mechanical nature and hell. AI can make pornography. It can make sensory pornography. It can make violence pornography. It's already making pornography. That was one of the first applications of AI. Virtual erotic dolls, which you can manipulate. You tell them what to do, and they'll do it. I mean, it was also in it was in Blade Runner. I mean, for heaven's sake, right? One of the first replicants they make were pleasure models. So behind me, as I mentioned, we have a man and a woman holding the cup, the chalice, and the six-pointed star, as above, so below. But the union of the blade and the chalice, right? That's the six-pointed star, and in the middle is the Holy Grail. And as I mentioned in the description to today's live stream, oh, sorry, before I go any further, Kathy did mention that she can't watch violence. There are levels of violence that I won't watch. Like, I have a threshold, and if it goes beyond a certain threshold, I turn away, I just close my eyes, or I fast forward, or I do whatever. So ultra violence. I can't watch ultra violence. And violence for the sake of violence, like violence porn, right? It's the same thing for me with sexuality. Well, that's also because, I'm practicing scientific chastity and I'm single. So unfortunately, I don't have a partner to practice white tantra with. So it's very, very, very difficult to remain chaste and preserve the sexual energy if one is watching films that are filled with erotic images and erotic scenes and erotic themes. So it's not that I wouldn't, or it's just like violence. I have a threshold, and then beyond that threshold, it becomes, even if it's not pornography, but there's something called soft porn, right? There is something called soft porn. And again, there's an entire cottage industry of direct to home video movies that are basically soft porn. They're R rated. They're not NC-17 or what we used to call X rated. They're not NC-17. They're R rated, but they are very erotic and sensual, and there's lots of nudity and there's lots of simulated sex acts. I don't like watching that kind of stuff. Not because I don't like watching it or because I can't appreciate it, because it's very difficult for a single man who's practicing scientific chastity to expose himself to such imagery and then not have those images return in dreams and in sleep, and having the unfortunate outcomes result of that, because astral larvae are a real phenomenon. You may know them as incubi and succubi. They're jinn, they're fourth dimensional entities, and they come and they fornicate with us in our sleep. And if we filled our minds with sexual imagery, even if it doesn't have to be X rated, even if it's just R rated, or even nowadays, and a PG-13 or whatever, if you filled your mind with couples simulating sex acts, and then you go to sleep, and don't be surprised if you get visited by an incubi or a succubi and you have a wet dream. There are many ways in which mechanical nature seeks to fornicate with us. And all of the egos, when we lose our temper, or when any of the egos possess us, and we give ourselves in, we give in to whatever desire in that moment. We can give in to gluttony, we can give in to laziness, we can give in to pride, to fear, and all of these things. And then we are being drained, right? We are being exploited in those moments. Everything okay? Okay, we just had a little freeze up there for a second. And remember last week when I was talking about the cell phones, how they crave our attention. Well, then look at the games that they put on these things and the microtransactions. They're literally taking money out of your wallet. But in addition to that, the amount of time and energy that we spend playing these completely useless, worthless, mindless, Pachinko type games on these things that are just like, it's a kind of pornography, like a Pachinko machine, or like slot machines, the digital slot machines in Vegas and other casinos, where they're just completely hypnotic and people just sit there for hours pumping money in, or now everything's on a card, right? So they just like pumping money and pressing the buttons and go like completely like zonked out. Most video games are like that anyway, where you just like vegged out on the couch, mindlessly playing this video game for hours and hours and hours. It's all a kind of pornography that's designed to drain you of your consciousness put your consciousness to sleep, I should say, and drain you of your energy. It's like having a wet dream, only you're not physically sleeping. It's just your consciousness is asleep, hypnotized by the video game or by the movie or whatever, and then your egos are draining you of your vital energy, whether that's through sentimentality, whether it's through violence porn, or whatever is being stimulated by that particular form of entertainment. Because remember, the difference between the word entertainment and entrainment. Entrainment means to be, for one frequency, one vibration, to be synchronized with another, but that what it means is one is either raised to match another or the other is lowered. So like lowering the vibration, to be entrained to a lower vibration. Like to be possessed, to be sucked under, to be consumed. So a higher vibration can be consumed by a lower vibration, and the higher vibration disappears. It disappears into the lower vibration. Now the lower vibration just has a greater magnitude. That's entrainment. And how similar a word to entertainment. Because the word entrainment has the word train in it, as in to train, to condition. So as a creator, if you're adding to that, you can't be in the creative space, or your creative juices are being exploited in order to churn out more mindless entertainment or just more content. Well, of course you're going to burn out. You're going to be exploited and you're going to feel unfulfilled. Because everything's all about the outcome. And if it's about the outcome, it's about control, and that's ultimately fear. And if you're constantly working in a state of fear, you can't possibly be divinely inspired and making the word flesh. Because there's no fear there. Or if there is, you have to face that fear and overcome that fear and transmute that fear into something more, into something greater. It's the opposite process of entrainment. Take that lower vibration of fear and raise it to a higher vibration. And that's something that actors experience before they go out on stage, when they have terrible stage fright. But then they step out on stage, and then that terrible, gut-wrenching feeling of terror, of stage fright, once you step out on stage, you can actually you can harness that, and you can use it in your performance. Every act of creation is sexual. You're working with the creative force, which is the sexual force. And this is the true and broad definition of sex. It is the masculine and feminine forces in union. And it's also Tantra. And Tantra is another very misunderstood word, like sex itself. There is another way to grasp the divine masculine and feminine. And it's not just the wholly affirming, wholly negating, and wholly reconciliating, because that's yet another way to conceptualize divine masculine, divine feminine. The divine masculine is expressive. It's expression itself. The divine feminine is reception. It receives. And in the union of an expression and a reception, we have what? Experience. So, in its most fundamental level that we can experience as mortals and as souls inside of mortal vessels, mortal bodies, as beings here having a temporary physical experience, we have expression and reception in consciousness. And when a reception receives an expression, an experience is created. Experience. And it's a sexual act. It's a sexual act in the field of consciousness, in the seventh dimension. Get that right? Sorry, in the sixth dimension, not the seventh dimension, in the sixth dimension, in the monad, in the consciousness. And who experiences that but the being? The being experiences it, but the being has a consciousness. And so in the consciousness field, everything that is created creates an expression. So you looking at me and listening to me, my voice, you are receiving all of that in consciousness. The experience of being where you are, watching this live stream, watching and listening to my voice, is sexual. Reality is being created in real time as the image and my voice reach your consciousness. My expression is received within you to create the experience that you're having. That's sexual. That's Tantra. There's no way of avoiding that. Everything that you interact with, everything that you see, everything that you listen to, the whole of your experience is being created in real time. Where? In your consciousness. There's nothing out there. There isn't anything out there. It's all an illusion. And as we go through life and have these sexual experiences, these tantric experiences, we want to remember that this is the 33rd episode, the 33 vertebrae of the spinal column, that the energy flows up an atom, up an atom, up an Adam, not down and out. So when we have the experiences, do we lose ourselves in the experience? Do we lose our shit? Do we go crazy with excitement and over the top and right? Like there's a way of appreciating an experience without losing oneself in the process. And by losing oneself, I mean, losing one's self and without allowing oneself to be exploited, without completely giving oneself and indulging, but appreciating. And to appreciate means to make something more valuable, to increase its value. And how do we increase its value? Well, we raise it up. Really, the only way for something to practically appreciate in value is that if somebody is willing to pay more for it. So how do you pay more for an experience that you are having? You're having an experience. It's a tantric sexual experience. Your consciousness is receiving an expression and you're having an experience. Now, you might be having an emotional reaction to that experience. Your egos might be reacting to that experience. Your anger might be triggered. Your fear might be triggered. Your greed, your envy. And now you're experiencing those egos. This might all be happening in that experience. And all of those egos are trying to drain you, or hypnotize you and drain you of your energy. Your anger wants you to get really angry and throw punches and kicks and scream and shout and have all this energy flow through the anger and leave you. Your angers, your egos want to exploit the experience. Just like lust wants to exploit any sexual encounter you have and get you to spill the seed, get you to orgasm, to have the spasm so that the sexual force leaves your body, so that lust can consume it and feed on you, like all parasites do. Right? That's a depreciation. That's a depreciation of the experience. The value of the experience has become less because your consciousness has been reduced and your sexual energy has been drained. But how do you do the reverse? How do you do the reverse? How do you appreciate the experience? Even the experience of feeling anger and frustration and greed and envy and lust and everything, all the other egos that are trying to steal your energy. How do you appreciate it? Appreciation requires someone who has the currency to pay for that experience. But once they pay for that experience, they own the experience. They take the experience away from you. You sell them the experience. The experience that they have paid for. That's how you appreciate the moment. So how do you pay for a moment in order for the experience to be appreciated? It's in the language. This is not a trick question. We say it all the time. We were told to do it every day in grade school and in high school. And we were told to do it by driving instructors. We were told to do it by every single teacher we ever had right before they were about to tell us something really important that they wanted to emphasize, and they wanted to make sure got across to us. What did they say? Got across to us. Listen to the language. It's all coding. It's all in the Word made flesh. What did those teachers tell us to do? What do you tell your children to do? when you want them to really focus on you and listen to you, what do you tell them to do? To pay attention. It's not a trick question. To pay attention. What do we have to pay? Consciousness. And when we pay attention to the moment, to the experience and what we're experiencing, we pay attention and just observe. But because we're paying attention, we've now positioned ourselves from being the one who's all caught up in it and everything else, who's being overwhelmed by it, indulging and spilling and everything else, spilling our energy into the moment. By paying attention, we step outside of all that and we rise up out of the groin area and our gut instincts and the kunda buffer organ, which is the tail of Satan, and all of the egos crystallized in the kunda buffer organ that wants the energy to flow down and out. Instead, we rise up the 33 degrees of our spinal column to the third eye and the crown chakra as we pay attention. And we're now attending from up here, but because we've paid attention, the experience is being bought by our being. Our being is buying and paying for the experience with conscious awareness, with conscious observation, by paying attention. And now we are paying attention to ourselves. We are paying attention to the mortal, the mere mortal, being overwhelmed by egos. And we step outside of that. And we can appreciate what is going on and why it's happening, or why it had to happen, why it needs to be this way. And we can transmute and transform the experience from something terrible and bad and nasty and I don't want this and right? And spilling all that energy and losing all of that energy and what we want and don't want. We can appreciate what's happening and why it needs to be. And there's a lesson here. There's fear, there's lust, there's greed. Okay. So I'm not quite as spiritual as I thought I was. I'm not quite as perfect as I thought I was. You're learning, you're appreciating, you're appreciating the lesson that you're receiving. Why? Just like every teacher told you, you're paying attention. And that's what it takes for something to appreciate, for its value to go from here up to here. Somebody needs to pay the difference in that value for the value to go up. That's what appreciation is. And it's the being who wants to appreciate the moment. It's your being who wants you to pay attention. And that's how you create knowledge, self-evident experiential knowledge, that which we seek. By appreciating life moment by moment, by paying attention. It's as simple as that. Paying attention to yourself, paying attention to others, paying attention to the surroundings. Now you become an appreciator of life. And what follows from this, what comes out of this, is an attitude of gratitude and positivity, because you're appreciating everything. Everything is being appreciated. And if everything's value is going up, well, that's a good thing. That's positive. But you see, the cult of positivity that preaches positivity puts the cart before the horse. They say Be positive, be positive, be positive. Then you can appreciate everything. Because they're stealing from you. The cult of positivity, the ego mind, is stealing. It's skimming off the top. The mortal trying to be positive and trying to appreciate things by being positive, all that currency is being gobbled up by the false self. It's a scam. When you simply pay attention and you allow your being to simply observe the experience, and extract from that, do the transformation of the impression and transmute and witness and comprehend the lessons by paying attention, now the moment is appreciated and the experience is appreciated and all the events are appreciated and all of life is appreciated. And now you're positive. You're in a state of positive. You're because you're all of your assets, all of your experience has appreciated. You're in the black, so to speak, using economic terms, not in the red, in the black. Right? So revenues are up, profits are up. Everything's going up. It's positive. It's going in the right direction. Positivity is an effect, not a cause. But you have to pay attention. You have to pay. There's no point in observing something and just forcing a positive belief onto it, because now you're not going to extract, your being can't extract the lesson from it. If you are imposing, you're spending. You're not paying attention, you're spending. You're imposing. You're dictating. Right? You're doing exactly what the New Age scam is all about. You're trying to manifest your desires. You're concerned with the outcome. Whereas your being just wants to pay attention and take the experience for what it is. Your being doesn't want to impose anything on the experience. Your being wants to appreciate the experience for what it is. That's why he's paying attention. It's in the language. It's like the code of reality, right? In the beginning was the word. It all comes down to the word. It's all just the word. In many ways, mechanical nature, what we see as AI and these large language models in microcosm is an expression of what's taking place in macrocosm. The word made flesh. The difference is, and hopefully I got that across effectively, that the true nature of divine, of mechanical nature is divine, because the divine is in everything. The spark, the seed, the breath of life, the word made flesh. Whereas in the large language models in AI, the closest analogy we have to that is the prompt made into something by this ultra processing mechanical process. It is still the word made flesh in some very, very primitive mechanical facsimile. But it's the same archetype, same process, just in a very reductive, mechanical, crude, primitive way, as only we human beings can concoct. Our weapon against the machines, the source of our empathy, the source of our inspiration, of our truth, and indeed that which we seek, our capacity to appreciate all that is, has been, and is to come. To imbue mechanical nature, including our mechanical nature, to allow, to receive that spark and allow it to play in our playground, and allow ourselves to become imbued by that light, that spark, to be moved by it, to be done by it, to be a human being done, to be a living, breathing embodiment of the Word made flesh. The Word made flesh and blood. The second coming of Christ. Let it be in you and in me and in all mankind. So be it. Benjamin Raphael says, Krishnamurti once said that belief conditions experience and the experience conditions beliefs. This is what makes the cult of positivity so alluring. It creates the feeling that nothing can go wrong and that life will be filled only with positive experiences. And by doing so, they shield themselves from the negative experiences, the pain and suffering that is required, that must be appreciated in order for genuine knowledge to be gained. Right? Because if you encounter a bad experience and you impose your positive beliefs onto the experience, now you can never extract the experiential knowledge from that experience. Why? Because just like your comment suggests here, Benjamin, you've blanketed the experience with the comforter of positivity. Now, whatever esoteric learning, whatever hidden knowledge, hidden wisdom was awaiting you there beneath the pain, beneath the suffering, it's gone. As Kathy says here, the sweetness through pain is gone because you've covered it in the band-aid of positivity. Or you've given yourself the painkiller and you've numbed yourself to the pain. You can never access the sweetness through the pain because you've numbed yourself. You've given yourself a cortisol injection of positivity, right? Anesthetics. That's what the positive power of positive thinking is. That and the manifesting of your desires, with your black magic, which is a whole other topic that we don't have time to get into right now. And what is true, so this is everything that is true for the artist and the creator is true for us who are creating our lives and creating our knowledge, creating our experiences moment by moment. To be the Word made flesh, to be a human being done. It's all connected. This is truly something that can be painted with one giant brush and paint it all with the same brush, because creation is creation and it's sexual, and it requires the divine masculine, the affirming, the positive, the expressive, the active, and it requires the divine feminine. the negating, the receptive, the passive, and their union, reconciliation, union, sex, neutrality, positive, negative, neutral. These are the three forces, and that's why we have the upper and the lower triangles, trinities, because those three forces are active in different ways in the supernal worlds and the middle worlds, and then here in the kingdom, and then below us in the infernal worlds. It's always the same three forces. They're just expressing themselves in different ways at different levels. But it's the same fundamental process. Benjamin says, what's even more striking is that our cell phones give us constant hits of dopamine by keeping us endlessly entertained. As a result, many in this generation appear to be happy all the time. In reality, we're being conditioned in a way that diminishes our ability to truly feel and experience the richness of life and the universe around us. Yeah, that's, you know what? You're right. That constant, and you know, that constant dopamine drip or dopamine feed is making people become resilient to dopamine. So they're becoming dopamine resistant in the same way that people become insulin resistant. So what do you need? You always need a bigger hit of dopamine. So now you got to do more extreme things, or you got to do it even more often. And so the next thing that they're working on, of course, is like virtual reality and augmented reality, because they want to get, and then the thing after that is to put your cell phone in a chip and stick it in your brain so that you can have a constant supply of dopamine being triggered just inside of your brain with constant stimulation. And you're right. It creates the appearance, the illusion of happiness. But what it is, but that's what pleasure has always been. That mechanical nature has always used pleasure as a substitute for joy. And you know that. We all know that, or we should by this point know that. That pleasure is the false promise. It is the broken promise that it can be a substitute for joy. And we all know that's not the case. In the same way that stuff and having an attachment to things is no substitute for love. Pleasure is no different. Pleasure is just a temporary, fleeting moment of what it is. It doesn't mean that you cannot experience pleasure and joy simultaneously, but joy is something that comes from appreciating pleasure and appreciating what is behind the pleasure. In the same way that earlier I was describing the essence of a film or an artwork or a property that people truly fall in love with, but because they do so unconsciously, they connect their love to the surface level, like what Eduardo was talking about with cosplay, right? To appreciate. So that's the same, in the same way that, so people watch Star Wars, they connect unconsciously, they connect to the deep universal ethics and truths embodied in the story, but they identify and become attached to the pleasure of the excitement and the superficial, right? Their superficial experience. but they relate their superficial experience to the in-depth love that they have. And they conflate the two and they confuse them. To appreciate pleasure is to become conscious and aware of the deeper divine source of whatever it is that we are partaking in that gives us pleasure. To appreciate pleasure, we connect to the deeper source of bliss, of joy. So when you make love to your soulmate or your twin soul, you make love, right? You're not doing the nasty, right? You're not getting it on, right? You're not banging one another. That's all. That might be pleasurable to some people. But when you outgrow pleasure, right? Pleasure no longer satisfies because you're not looking to satisfy the hungers of the body. You are looking to self-actualize and realize the longings of the being. To make for the word to become flesh, the act must be that of making love, of joy and of bliss. And that becomes a whole new dimension of pleasure. And whatever physical pleasure is there is raised up to a completely other dimension and gets wrapped up and entrained, appreciated into a divine exchange, into a divine dance. And now we're in the realm of pure joy and pure bliss. And lust cannot go there. Benjamin says, some suggest that cell phones are aptly named because they place people in their own cells, not physical prison cells, but invisible ones that confine the mind. Oh, yeah, I can see that. I can see that. There's only one thing that, and that's the empathy, the EMP, just like in the Matrix. Like if you rewatch the Matrix, the electromagnetic pulse, it's not a physical weapon. It's a weapon of the foundation. It's electromagnetism. It has the capacity to knock out the AI, to knock out the machines. Appreciating and raising up the energy to a higher level, to a higher dimension, to a higher frequency, right? Higher than that of the low frequency, you are able to knock out the lower frequency. Benjamin says, in the movie The Matrix, phones serve as gateways used both to escape the Matrix and to enter it. Strangely, the language around phones in real life carries a coincidental echo of that idea. We may have to go deeper into that at some point in the future. This whole idea of telephones and the Matrix, because it's definitely it's present there, but they can't get out with a smartphone. They can only with a cell phone. They can only get out with a hard line. So there may be more to that image and that allegory than we're giving it credit for, or we may be reading too much into it in terms of what the filmmakers believe. But there is something to that. But I think it mostly has to do with the fact that the first internet and the first telecommunications via computers were done via dial-up lines and modems. And there is just something too nostalgic and there's something too iconic about that dial-up sound. You know, the dialing up into a modem and the sound it makes when it connects, that the makers of the Matrix couldn't resist, because it is so, what's the word that I'm looking for? Evocative. It is so evocative to everyone in our generation who first experienced bulletin boards and online video games and multi-user dimensions and MMOs, and I said bulletin boards, and the first versions of the internet, like AOL, right? America Online, like dialing up that sound. Yeah, exactly. So Benjamin Raphael said, yeah, I still remember that dial-up sound. It's so nostalgic. Like, but the thing about being dialed in and connecting, that is that not exactly what we're doing and what in meditation and in self-observation? When I say to pay attention, to appreciate the moment, you have to be dialed in to yourself, to your higher self, and you have to make the connection. But it has to be a hard line. It can't be a cell connection. It's not, you're not connecting to some god somewhere out there in the clouds. It's a hard line. It's up the telephone pole, right? It's up to 33 degrees of the spinal column. It's at the top of the staff. It's at the tip of the sword. It's in the third eye. You have to dial in and make that connection. And so that's what made that sound so compelling and iconic, that dial-in sound, when you could hear that, and then you looked at the screen and boom, you were online, you were connected, and you were connected into, at that time, what was potentially this infinite resource of knowledge and information, the information superhighway. You were dialed in and connected to it. You see, this is mechanical nature's rudimentary, primitive, mechanical substitute for meditation. Because you don't have the whiz bang nostalgic iconic sound in meditation. You don't have the little mini Pachenko machine happening in meditation or when you're doing self-observation. All you have is the still, soft voice. All you have is the spark of insight, or the lightning that flashes in the dark of night, as the Buddhist might say. It's something worthwhile to chew on and meditate on until next week. I want to thank everybody for taking the time out of your Sunday, as you always do, to spend your time with us. And I want to thank my friend Eduardo for coming and spending an hour and a half with us, or actually 2 hours with us earlier in the day, as we were talking about specifically topics related to creativity and to art and design and so forth. If anybody has any more questions or comments, I'll give you a couple minutes to type. But if not, I do want to thank everyone again for being here. It really is about this union and this appreciation, and that The adversary is there waiting to be appreciated. In the same way that the block of stone is there waiting to be transformed into something beautiful and timeless and purposeful and meaningful. Even the stone, the monad in the stone, wants to make a contribution. Maybe it's just going to be a landscaping stone and used in somebody's garden, or maybe it was just going to be used as a paving stone. But maybe someone's going to take it, carve it, polish it, and make it a tombstone. Maybe it'll be a marker of something else, of a landmark stone with a bronze plaque on it. Or maybe it will well and truly become a structure. It'll become a cornerstone, or part of a wall, or part of a foundation. Or maybe it will become a sculpture, something beautiful and ineffable and timeless and universal. All beings wish to self-actualize. All beings long to be the Word made flesh. And as creators, as artists, as individuals, as people, as human beings, and human being done, it is our purpose to go through life paying attention to opportunities all around us and within us to appreciate the moment and help beings become the Word made flesh. Kathy says, thank you. Thank you, Kathy, for being here. Benjamin Raphael says, thank you for sharing your insights today, sir. Really gained a new perspective. Wishing all a great week ahead. Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you all. Have a great week. And I have a good Labor Day tomorrow. And I hope to see you all again next week. And until then, as always, inferential peace. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.